And we are live. Happy Thursday night, Sober Nation. It's been a couple weeks, actually. I've been away. Veronica has been sick. And how are you?
I'm good, feeling a lot better, and it was a bummer that we couldn't be on. I think that was the first night that we didn't do a live on a Thursday for like almost a year, which is a great track record and great consistency. But we are really bummed out that we let a couple of people down because I know there's some of you, some of our friends who do show up on Thursdays to hang out with us. We have some regulars, so just know that we had to make that call at the last minute, and it was definitely like we
Yeah,
did feel horrible that we
really
were not going to.
minute. We posted everything and
Yeah,
and it was
had to take it down. Yeah, exactly. So it was definitely some last minute stuff. But we are here tonight and we're excited because we're going to be talking about a topic that, is kind of touchy because some people get offended if you approach, blah, blah, blah. But last week, Tori did a poll and she asked you guys, the community, how you'd approach a loved one or a friend who may be about to relapse. Now, there were, a few comments, but we're talking about relapse tonight. And basically, we've talked about relapse, as an individual and how not to relapse and what to do if you're about to relapse. But we haven't really gotten into like, how do we deal with somebody close to us relapsing, especially like in relationships? That can be tough. It can take people out, sometimes. So it's definitely a topic that's really relevant to all of us. So, what do you think about this topic?
yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple facets for this topic that can be like really controversial. And especially if you are, I mean, most of us here are in recovery. There's some that are not. But, I mean, there's some things that are controversial. How do you remove yourself? How do you talk to this person? How do you show them that you're there, but while keeping boundaries, So it's
Yeah.
really, there's a lot of facets and it can be very touchy. But real quick, I'm going to say hi to Megan and Bill. Megan says she celebrated 20 years of sobriety on July 10th.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
That's amazing. So I know in some of the comments as well on the poll that we posted, some people did get a little offended.
They
Uh,
got offended.
there was a couple people that did because, they say there's no signs of real. There was.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Graham said I did jot him down, and I did pull out a couple of the comments that were there, and he actually started a really good thread because,
Mhm.
he talked about. So somebody left a comment, Graham, and I don't know if he's here with us tonight, but he basically said he started off as like, "Is this a recovery page?" Yes, it is. But he went on to say that there are no signs. Like, what are we talking about? But then he went on to clarify that the signs are there like after the person relapse, and it's really hard to tell before the relapse. So how do you really intervene? And then he started a really great thread, and we're going to get into that thread in a little while because I like the order that we sort of went ahead and worked on these comments. But real quick, how would you guys, deal with somebody close to you relapsing? Let us know in the comments because we want to know what you think. We're having a live conversation, and this is what it's all about. I mean, we'll talk about the poll, but we also want to know, for those of you who are with us, have you been in that situation? What did you do? And what advice would you have for
Yeah.
someone who's going through that? Definitely let us know in the comments. Is anybody? I can't see comments tonight, by the way, you guys. I'm on my phone. Normally, I'm on my computer, so I'm depending on Tori to read all the comments. So I feel a little blind because normally I'm in there and I'm
Well,
interacting.
Chuck is here. Hi, Chuck. How are you? He's with us every week.
Hey,
Uh,
Chuck.
and Sherry is here from Visalia, California. I hope I said that right. Um, and Geraldine is here. Hi, Geraldine. How are you?
Hey. Nice
Geraldine is
to see
our regular here too. But and we've also posted, a couple blog posts on this too about, how to talk to someone who is struggling or maybe struggling. And one of the first points on there is I wrote use I statements, because someone who could be in the midst of relapse or on the verge of relapse, if you start to speculate that they're using and accuse someone, then they're going to get defensive, right? So using I statements, I feel, upset when you bail out on me, or when I don't see you at that meeting, right?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
That's a good one. I mean, a lot of people pretty much, said to not be judgmental in your approach. So Cynthia said, lead by example, which is always great, right? Like just being that person that's like in recovery and kind of doing their thing and showing up and being consistent, that's really helpful. But then Jason said he wouldn't approach a person. And there were a couple of people that said, um, they just wouldn't say anything, and they wouldn't, that's not their place, and that's okay. That's I've seen people do that when they see somebody close to them, they have to step away and cut ties altogether because it could really take them out. So there are some people who make the decision to not say anything, not get involved, and let that person deal with it, on their own. This guy Stain, I don't Stein. It was Stian. He said, "Be straight up and express concern." Which I think is a good, rule. Just kind of like if you see somebody and it's not somebody that will take you out, or you're not in any immediate danger, and you're not risking, being in a place that's like may have substances or people using. Be straight up with the person. Tell them how you feel, and like you said, maybe using the I statements, and he said that he was on the receiving end once of that kind of conversation, and he always goes back and remembers that person. Like even when he's struggling, like he'll go back and remember like the conversation that he had with this person. So, it could really mean a lot to someone.
Right.
Now, other people get offended and get angry. So I want to know, from the comments, would you guys get angry if someone said that, maybe you're showing signs of relapse? And that's also one of Graham's points. Graham, the guy who commented, kind of, not offended, but just he just said, you wouldn't know. It's because he's been approached and people assumed that he was about to relapse when that wasn't the case. So there's also that, right? There's also the side that you may care for someone and say, hey, are you okay? And then they get offended that you're, second guessing. Like, would you get offended if somebody like approached you?
I've been in that situation where someone has approached me saying, you like you're bailing out on me. You're not going, like, I don't see you these places that I did consistently every week or every day, whatever. And there has also been the time that I wasn't on the verge of relapse that someone has approached me and I got offended. But there was also a time where I was on the verge of relapse and someone approached me and I got offended too. So it's really like either way, you gotta, I think, be straight up with that person. Even if they aren't, if they're gonna get offended, there's a saying that's, I'd rather step on your toes than step on your grave, right? I,
I never heard that. That's actually really good.
but I'm gonna go to the comments real quick
Yeah,
because there's a lot
please.
coming in. Brittany wants to check in and she says, "Hey, just doing a check in. 42 days clean and still counting. She's so thankful." Congrats.
Yay, Brittany, we're so proud of you.
Um, let's see, there's one comment, and someone is currently in this situation themselves. They have a good friend who relapsed, and he is saying, "It's not going to matter what you say to me. He's going to end. He's going to keep going until he's in rehab or hospitalized. This person feels helpless. Words aren't helpful to him currently. I told him I was there to talk, and anything he needed. I expressed love and disappointment in the mix." I mean, yeah, I agree with that. Agree with what you did in that situation. I think, if that person says they're going to keep going, or whatever, you've kind of planted that seed.
Yeah.
Like if they are want to talk, then they know that you're there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, exactly. Like you just like you sort of do your part. It's a very helpless position to be in. And again, there especially like, and it's one thing if it's like your friend, but it's another thing if it's somebody like your spouse, like, and you want them to stop and they continue to use, or they continue to, it's a very position because you can't do it for them. It's sort of like, and you can offer them help, and they can even go to treatment and then come back out of treatment and go back to using. So it could be, a real mess. But that's to a degree, like if that's just your friend, and that's all you could do, like just express that concern. And, maybe if you know of treatment options, or, programs, or maybe suggest outpatient treatment if they don't want to go to inpatient treatment. That's all you could do, and maybe help them if they're interested in going to treatment, helping them find a place that's reputable. But you really can't do much more. But I think you have to state your piece. And my whole thing, like, if I see someone struggling, like, I would hate for something to happen to that person and for me to not have said anything. Like, I always think about that, and I would rather say something, even if they're going to stop speaking to me, than,
Right.
not say anything at all and then have something happen to them. And then I'll always carry that regret with me. Like, I wouldn't be able to deal with that.
No, I totally agree with you there. Then Jeff says, "Hi, all. I just got back from a meeting and I'm recovering from a relapse myself." Jeff, I want to know, like, did anyone approach you before you, like, before you relapsed, or kind of like what happened before that process? Because I know for me, like, I've relapsed many times before, and for me there was lots of signs, even though I wasn't paying attention to them, other people were. And I know that, in that comment someone said there's really no signs, but I believe that there are a lot of signs. Like, an emotional relapse happens before you actually pick up drugs or alcohol.
Right,
uh,
right.
Megan says, "I've been in this situation many times as a sponsor with newcomers,
Mhm.
as well as people who have had time behind them. I feel it's the person. They have to want to be clean and sober. If they want help, they will go to great lengths to get help, just as we did when we used. Only they can make that decision."
Yep.
I agree.
Done. Yeah, totally agree. Um, what are some of the signs? Let's get into the signs, because that's something else that, you know, came up in the poll the other day. We were talking about, are there signs? And again, I'm going to go back to Graham. I hope he like watches this or whatever, so he knows, that we did kind of, respond to his questions. But, he said there were no signs that, like, it just, we know, like, after it happens. But, then there are people, like, I think someone named Sarah came in and responded and said there are signs, there's always signs. And you just stated that. So what are some of the signs? And for those of you in the comments, what are some of the signs that you've seen, some of your friends struggle with?
Yeah, I know. And real quick, Annie says she left her husband and then later divorced because of his relapse. I mean, sometimes it does come down to that, unfortunately.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, and hi, Tiffany, how are you? And Emma's here. She's just joining.
Hey.
Chuck says Al Anon may help. Absolutely.
Yes,
Um,
yes, it's very helpful. It's because, again, the helplessness. There's nothing else you can do. So, like, especially, in Annie's case, like, she had to, separate and get a divorce. And, at that point, you're watching the person that you love and you care about. I mean, even if you're still not married to that person, you're watching them, their health decline, and you feel so helpless. There's nothing you can do. So at that point, the only thing you can do is work on yourself. So that's why, like, it's so great that there's programs like Al-Anon out there, because there are people who have been through what you're going through that can guide you and that can help you and that can support you. And that's what Al-Anon is for. For those of you that don't know what Al-Anon is a 12-step program, sort of based, like a version of the 12 steps. They do work the 12 steps, but from, like, the family member or the friend or, the loved one approach kind of deal. And, everybody has been through what you're going through when you walk in that room. So it's such a great support. I mean, I've attended a few Al Anon meetings and they were amazing.
and we had a topic live on this a couple weeks ago with my mom.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if you want to recirculate back to there. But Jeff says, I asked him, did anyone like approach him about a relapse? And he says no one did. He hid it and kept it to himself. He wasn't ready to ask for help, but I'm ready and have started to go to meetings as much as I can. Good for you.
That's awesome, Jeff. I mean, there's something to be said about, like, quietly going through a relapse and having the strength to, go back in and go back to meetings and knowing yourself without anybody else intervening, and, like, you picking yourself back up and saying, okay, like, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to do this anymore. And this has to stop. Like, that's amazing. I'm so proud of you, Jeff, because that, like, to me, it's like so hard, and probably one of the most courageous things that people can do, again, without anybody intervening and telling them to stop. And as we all know, addiction is just that kind of disease where you're like in denial and you're not, again, your brain thinks that you need this substance in order to survive, so you lose the perspective of saying like, oh hey, like this isn't good for me. So
Right.
it's amazing that you had that moment and that now you're going to meetings and doing whatever it takes. And that's what you have to do whatever it takes and go as hard as you did, with the addiction into your recovery, and just put that same energy into that. So we're really proud of you, Jeff. Definitely check back in. We want to know how you're doing.
Yeah. And there's some people that are saying, oh, go ahead. What were you saying?
No, I was just telling Jeff we're here every Thursday, so definitely, check back in with us. We want to know how you're doing, next week, in a few weeks. We definitely want to support you because, again, like when you go through this alone, it's like it's not fun. So,
Going through this alone, like, doesn't really, I personally, like, I don't think it works. So,
yeah, yeah.
and there's people that are talking about, signs of a relapse before
Oh,
it.
yeah, let's talk about that.
So Annie's saying always lying.
Mm,
Starting to lie.
yes.
I lied about people, places, things, who I was with, where I was, what I was doing. Or
Yeah, but relationships too, like,
yeah,
just the behavior and like, I went through something similar, Annie, and it is horrible because you feel like you're being cheated on, and because of mistrust, like the trust goes away, just sort of like the same how you lose trust if somebody cheats on you is sort of like the same thing. You can't trust that person anymore. And like once that trust is broken, it's like the whole thing is broken. So the lying is just absolutely one of the first signs that something isn't right, because that person wouldn't be lying if it were, if things were cool. And absolutely, that's a really good one.
Emma says becoming distant.
Yep.
And I
I,
feel like that goes hand in hand with lying.
yeah.
Just kind of being socially, emotionally shut off and not engaged in life. Uh,
Yeah.
Bill says,
Kind of doing your own thing.
yeah,
Sorry.
Bill says isolation.
Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. That's
yeah,
what I was gonna say.
I know another one was for me and for a lot of people that I do know was thinking that I can do this on my own.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we think we have the whole thing is like we think we have everything under control.
Mhm.
So when we're approached by a loved one, yeah, that we get offended because we think, again, the disease of addiction, makes you believe that you have it all figured out, you have everything under control, when in fact you don't. So
Right.
when you're approached, that's why people get offended, because how dare you say something to me? First of all, I have it under control, and it's like, no, you don't. Your life is a mess, and so people, but again, well, we'll get back to tips and how to handle it in just a little bit. Are there any more signs? Are people?
Jody says stop going to meetings.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
And let's see. Anne says just what I needed right now. Thank you, ladies. Rhiannon says hello, ladies. Have 2 years clean on August 21st.
Yay!
Yeah.
Yes.
So those are some of the. Oh, Chuck says character defects are in full force. Parentheses.
Mhm.
Dry drunk.
Oh God, you're so right. Like the character defects are in full effect. They're just out there and just a sloppy mess. It's just, yeah, it's like, things start to unravel really fast. And if you are somebody who has been in recovery and are going through relapse, like things unravel a lot faster than they did the first time. And your consequences just start to show up a lot sooner. It doesn't take quite as long for you to hit a bottom. So the more that you're relapsing, the quicker that you're hitting those consequences and hitting that bottom. So your life unravels pretty quickly. Like once, I don't know why that is, but it just gets worse. It just does. So that's why a lot of people say, like, don't go out there and do any research. Like we've done it for you. Like it doesn't get better. Like it gets worse. And it's true. I didn't believe it until I had that experience, and it was like, oh, okay, that they were right. So, um,
Well,
yeah.
Anne says, I'm going through this right now. She had 12 years sober and went back out. She says it's terrible. Well, we're here for you.
Yes. absolutely. Thank you for joining tonight. Like, let us know how you're doing. And just like we told Jeff, like we're here every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. So we want to know how you're doing. Like, let us know next week. Join us, whenever, and just keep in touch and let us know how you're doing. But I mean, that's really, I have a lot of respect for you, because somebody who has 12 years, that's like more than a decade. And then for you to admit like, yo, I relapsed, because a lot of people, their clean time becomes sort of their identity, and especially like with the friendships and their relationships, around their support group, so to come back and say like this happened, and
Right.
it's not unusual, like this, it's a day at a time thing. So even though we have years, like any of us are susceptible to it. There's nobody has the formula, nobody has it figured out, nobody's fully recovered. So, what happened to you can happen to anyone. So, there's no reason to feel like ashamed of yourself. But we do feel ashamed of ourselves because we feel like we should know better, we should be doing better. But it's still a disease that can, come back at any time. So I think that takes a lot of courage. So welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back. Heidi says playing the victim is a sign.
Mm, yeah, yeah, like and blaming everybody else for your problems and like going on and just a bunch of problems, and this person did this, and my boss is doing this, and yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
everything, everybody is, coming at me.
Yeah, against that person, right? It's not the person. Let's see, what else did I see in the poll? Okay, I think let's go over to like what do we do, right? If we see somebody like a relapse. So we know like people have said lead by example. We've said, that as someone else said that, they should just be straight up. Nicholas said be gentle and honest. And I think that that goes hand in hand with like not being judgmental. It's like don't come at that person aggressive and like
Right,
again, a friend is like a little different, but if it's a loved one or like a family member or a spouse, it's really hard to not be mad. It's really hard to not get angry with that person and say like, how in the world are you using again, like we went through this, like that's a lot. With a friend you can have like that emotional boundary where you're not going to be mad, and you're going to be able to be gentle and not judgmental. But in a marriage or a boyfriend or a girlfriend or whatever, like you're gonna be mad because there's probably been behavior leading up to the actual use, like the lying and whatever. So you're gonna feel all kinds of
and
feelings, anger,
sometimes loved
disappointment.
ones can choose, like, automatically, just kind of like, oh, like that's they're not, that's they're not using, that kind of denial too,
Oh
because
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah. I've
don't face
seen that with parents. I've seen that with parents a lot. Like sort of saying like, no, they're not, they're just doing this, and sort of not enable. I don't even like that word, but sort of turn an eye to like some of the little signs, like, hey, this person is about to go out, and like they need to go to, oh well, and sort of making excuses. That's also another sign. So like sort of like if you're like, let's say like a third party of like a mom and a child, or like kind of like that scenario, and like you see like that other person or even like a spouse making excuses for their spouse and saying, oh, so and so didn't show up because of this, and sort of turning that blind eye could be a sign like that person may be struggling, and as a friend I might need to like just say something, or maybe not. It depends on the scenario.
I think not saying something is going to keep, like, if that person is relapsing, it's going to keep them sick.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
on the board, it's going to keep that, behavior kind of cycling and up in the air like that.
Yeah, and I've seen friendships, like lifelong friendships of friends who like used together and then got clean, on their own, and then one of them relapsed, and like that other friend stopped talking to the person, and
Oh
you
yeah.
know at the time like that person took it personal because it was like, this is my friend and I'm struggling and like he's not there for me, but that person couldn't be there for them because they felt like that was putting their recovery in jeopardy. And you have to respect that. At the end of the day, like that friendship didn't end when this person went and got it together. The friend was a friend again, but when he was using, he wasn't a friend. He didn't want anything to do with him. So he knew what to do already. And I think that that's also why that other friend felt it was okay to let go completely and to turn his back on him, is because you know what to do. Like that person had been in treatment multiple times. That person knew like to go to meetings. They knew what to do. So I think in that regard, I could see like how that approach works and how they could still remain friends even if that person chose to walk away. But that doesn't always work for everybody. So I think every scenario is different.
I totally agree. And Bill says a guy speaking at my home group last week had 27 years and went back out. I mean, it's so, I mean, it's so real. This is
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah, we're never cured. Like that's just the bottom line. Like there's no cure for it and we're never cured and like that could happen to anybody at any time. It doesn't matter how long you have. There's a great quote by Samuel Jackson, right? Like
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, so we're going to be publishing that any day now. But I mean, he was just saying, like, that he hasn't had a drink in 27 years. And, he thinks about drinking and he loved it. He enjoyed it. But he has to remind himself that he can't have one. Like, this is Samuel L. Jackson. He's like rich, he's famous and like he has everything and like he goes through this, like we all go through it. He has 27 years and he still thinks about a drink. I mean, clearly he's in Hollywood, so I'm sure he's around much more than that. And the fact that he manages to stay clean and sober despite what's going on around him, despite the fact that he's in that environment, I think that's amazing. But also the humility to say like,
Oh my God.
I have to remind myself I can't have one. Like that's keeping it so real. And I think, we all have to do that. That like we can't have one and but I think that, there is that side of us that would like to, but we know better because we've been through what we've been through and we don't want to be there again. And a lot of us like fought really hard to like get to where we are today, and went through a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's another good point. Like, if you do suspect like someone is relapsing, or if you even know that they are using, have gotten there, it's important like not to address that with them alone. Um,
Mm.
have someone with you. I mean, and I know this as a 12-step call, or
Right. I was just going to say that.
yeah, I mean, if you are in recovery, have someone with you because you have it. You're in recovery.
Yeah, yeah. Like if you're going to somebody's house or something, like you don't know if they're using, like that's a great scenario where you should like definitely take somebody with you. Again, if you're a spouse, like that's tricky because you have to live with that person. So it's like you can't set that space boundary and say like I can't be around that person. I mean, you can, like and that's how people separate and whatever, but like um it's just yeah, it's hard. It's really hard to watch somebody struggle.
Marta says if he has 27 years and still thinks about a drink, he isn't working a program.
I mean, it depends how hard he's thinking about a drink, right? Like, I mean,
I mean, there's passive thoughts, right? Fleeting thoughts.
yeah. I think everybody can think about like it depends like if he's like feeling for a drink, I think like yeah, there's something maybe he needs to look at. But if he's saying like, oh hey, like, because I mean again, like think about the environment that he's in. Like people are partying around him all the time. So like it has to cross his mind, like, oh, I can't have a drink. Like everybody around me is drinking, but I can't have one. I don't think that means that he needs to work a better program. I think like people can have those thoughts and remind themselves. I think that is working a program. If anything, like reminding themselves that can't have one. Like not working a program would be thinking like he can. I don't
And,
know.
Megan kind of summed it up. She says after just celebrating 20 years, it's still one day at a time some days. Um, I mean, absolutely, because this is a disease that we have and we're never cured. So, like we're talking about, anyone can relapse, right? Someone with
Exactly.
27 years that Chuck just said, or someone just said, Bill, I think, I don't know, just went out. So, I mean, you
Yeah,
can work a program all you want, but it still happens.
absolutely. So
Um,
Tanya said in the poll, Tanya said she's lets the person know that she's there for them without judgment. And I think we talked about that earlier in the conversation. And if you're just tuning in, we're talking about how to approach somebody who may be on the verge of a relapse. And she says no judgment. She just lets them know that she's there. So I think that's again a great approach if you're a friend. Again, if you're a spouse or boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever, fiance, like that can be tricky without the judgment, because the judgment may come in just again because you're experiencing other behavior, like people lying to you, and it's hard. It's going to be harder to do the no judgment thing.
Right. Absolutely.
Um,
I think too, another, if someone does get upset or offended, this is where, our own work comes into play. Don't take it personally, you
Yeah,
know?
'cause it's not even that person you're talking to, right? Like you're talking to disease. So, and I've also known people who are completely different people when they're using, like completely, like when they're not using, they're, sweethearts, they're amazing, they're great. And then when they're using, they become like Jekyll and Hyde. They're like a completely different person. Like that person is no longer there. Like it's one of the craziest things that I've experienced. Like that person like is no longer there. And you try talking to that person and try to get them to go to treatment, whatever, and just that person's just not, like you can't get through because that's not that person. It's the disease. So you can't take it personal. You just have to, do what you can. But you also have to take care of you. And if that means going to Al-Anon, going to see a therapist, again, if this is a very close relationship, if it's a friend, then again, you can just let them know you're there and that you can help them. You know, um, but yeah, and I love this comment from Joy Lynn. She said that she would approach a family member and would say something like, "Hey, it appears you're struggling. Let's take a walk and come up with a plan." Like I just love like that approach about like taking somebody for a walk and like just because that like totally like removes that person from the environment, and maybe like that person lets their guard down and says, "Yeah, like let's come up with some sort of plan." Yeah, I really like how she put it. I don't know.
And that's so like calm and
Yeah.
just serene. I don't know, serene and just how like I feel like want to be, like let's
Yeah.
walk. Come on now. Like
Yeah. Come up with a plan, and like it seems like you're struggling. Let's figure this out. Like I love that. Like it's such a like, but again, I want to make the distinction that's maybe works for some cases, but then some cases are just too like there's too much going on for you to be like that happy go lucky, like, oh, let's take a walk and try to figure this out. Like, no, you need to like go to treatment, or you need to figure this out. You need to stop. Again, with family members and like spouses and loved ones, the stakes are higher. There's more emotional involvement, and there's like you've probably been the victim of some sort of behavior, whether that has been, people lying to you or just stealing from you, even. I mean, the list can go on. And we all know it happens. So it's like, it's hard to like, if you're in that, so and I keep going back to that because I don't want, somebody who's going through that right now, who's a loved one, to think that we're like making it easier to say like, oh, just tell that person, that you're there for them, and that's that. Like, no, like it's hard, and again, that works in some cases, but we know like there's a lot of families struggling right now, and that's not going to work for them. So, that's why I keep making that point.
well, Chuck says a spouse going back out is difficult, but the principles to stay sane are the same.
Totally. Totally. No, totally. You need to like get clean, get sober. Like you can't be in the house. Like you're messing up, you're putting my recovery at risk. Like, so yeah, the boundaries need to be there, and the principles, like he said, need to also be there. But I completely agree.
Megan says she had a small get together for her sober anniversary, and someone brought a friend to her home who was high and had booze on their breath. So, and she felt very upset and disrespected, and they were asked to leave immediately.
That's, yeah, you set the boundary right there. Like, what you're not gonna do is come to my sober celebration drunk. Like, yeah, like, come on now. Like, that's crazy. And then but I want to know, like, who brought that person over and what did they have to say? Like,
Right.
you have to tell us now. Like, now I'm like all in this story. Um, that sucks. I'm sorry that happened, because you're trying to like celebrate your clean time, and then somebody's gonna show up, but like that sucks. I'm sorry that happened to you, but like, yeah, what did the person say that brought him?
All about the other person, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah, because everybody's gonna be like, oh my god, so and so is like, drinking or whatever, and that's what's gonna, instead of focusing like what you guys are gathering to focus on, you're focusing now on this person being disruptive and just like the drama now, So yeah, I want to know what the person that brought the person had to say. Like, did they like know? Did they not know? Like, why? Like, that's so mean. Um, so let's see. Is there any other comments? I'm gonna see if like there's anything else from the poll.
Jeff says, I was in a relationship just like that. We got clean and then relapsed. We are toxic while drinking, but so great while sober. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like people totally change. Like it's the whole Jekyll and Hyde thing. They become different people when they're under the influence, and it can be the worst thing ever. But also, like when you're clean and sober, it could be the best thing ever. So it's really tough.
Right.
And then Jared said that he's a believer of telling people what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And I think that that's, important too, like saying like what they need to hear, not what they want to hear. And sometimes if we're in scenarios where that person is more powerful than us, like let's say it's a boss or somebody who has like something over us, sometimes we may not feel like we can say something. That's also another scenario, like where, it could be a parent that's using, that's drinking. Like people have had, their parents, and they grew up with an alcoholic parent, and sometimes they had to say what that person wanted to hear because that's how they survived. So
Yeah.
that's
There's a ton of different dynamics, that this situation of someone relapsing could be in.
yeah.
And so there's we're covering a broad subject, but there's a lot of, like little scenarios within the scope that we're talking about.
Yeah, so many different experiences because again, it affects everyone. Like if one person relapses, you're not just relapsing you're taking out everybody in your little group, right? So like if you're married, you're taking out your whole family with you because they are going to suffer the consequences, and like it's not just you. Like if you're just on this island by yourself, okay, then it's just you. But like if you have people close to you, those people are going to be affected by your use in one way or another. So that's the thing. And what we sort of need to think about it and why people may feel they need to approach you because your behavior is now affecting them in some way. So that's also a thing.
Yeah. And hey, Debbie, she says better late than never. Uh,
Hi.
Antonio, if you don't like what we're saying, then you don't have to be in this group. So I'm just
What did Antonio say? Well, I'll look at it later. If not what repeating is fine, but I mean the fact that you had to say that.
emphasis on the like, FYI. You'll get it later, Veronica.
Okay. Let's focus on the positive.
Yeah. Emma says she's clean and her mother is a functioning alcoholic. She doesn't see it or think she is. I don't speak with her to keep her sobriety. Yeah, and that's really hard and can be heartbreaking.
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to like that thing that, what I had just said that, sometimes it's really tough when you're in that dynamic because,
Mhm.
people do expect you to support them in the dysfunction. And in some of the, while they won't admit to certain things, they do expect you to still be there for them. And they may not be honest with you and what's really going on. And it could be really frustrating. It's a difficult position to be in.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think we've exhausted this topic.
Well, I think we can go on for a while because, like you said, the dynamics can be so different, whether it's like parents or it's family members or, spouses. But I think we covered everything, between like tips, what are the signs, and what people could do. I appreciate everybody who jumped on here and shared their experience and, what they've been through, especially the people who are coming back from a relapse. I think that takes a lot of courage. So definitely hang in there, keep going. So I appreciate everybody who showed up and who participated and who had something positive to contribute to the conversation.
Mark, I just want to say this comment real quick. Mark says 2 weeks till 44 years sober. He doesn't think about a drink, but knows it's still there waiting for him. He has seen many people with many years go back out. Most have had but quit working a program that tells him he needs to do something every day to ensure that day's sobriety.
There
Yes.
you have it, folks. Like that's the best way to close the broadcast is like basically with that comment because there you have it. 44 years
Oh my goodness.
still feels like he needs to do something every day and that just confirms exactly what we have been talking about.
Yeah.
So, nobody's immune to this. If you are already in recovery or like if you are suffering from symptoms of addiction, like it can happen to anybody. So,
Well, reach out to us. I mean, you can send me an email, Tori, TORI at sobernation.com. You can send us a message on our Facebook page. Um,
yeah, there's a lot of ways that we can support you. We also have a private community right now, Sobriety Engine, which is something we have been talking about and you'll probably be hearing more about, in the upcoming future. And
plug. Mhm. Yeah.
what?
I said shameless plug, Sobriety Engine. Okay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, do you want to tell them a little bit more about it, like for people who need additional support?
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like a smaller online community, and kind of caters to every day. I send out an email every day, just to your inbox that gives you a little bit of motivation, and really, there's like a secret Facebook group for it, and it's sobrietyengine.com, like an engine of a car. So, and there's lots of different courses on relapse, emotional sobriety, just different tools and spirituality. So really kind of all encompassing. It's really, really cool. Sobrietyengine.com. So
Yeah, so if you feel like you need to kind of like reboot your recovery or kind of like just something new and you feel like you've hit that stale, we've talked about that before too, where like you're sort of working your program, but then you hit a moment where you sort of get stale and you feel like you need to like up your routine or do something different. This is a great thing to do. So definitely check it out if you're interested. But you could also participate in our Sober Sense series. You've probably seen those pictures where people submit a photo, submit their story and talk about how long they've been clean and sober. So you could also do that. That's on the website.
and Anne, we are here every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we'll be back next week, hopefully with a guest.
Yeah, we're working on something. I know this week we published an article about Suboxone and a recent ruling about them having to pay like billions of dollars for misleading people. And a lot of people have commented and have been, in the conversation about it. And I think it's time to probably bring in an expert and have a conversation about that because that's a hot topic in the community. There are people who that has worked for, and there are people who are totally against it. But I think we just present the information to you guys, and then you guys decide sort of what to do with that. So we want to like not we don't have an opinion one way or another. We feel like all pathways to recovery are fair, like whatever it takes, as long as people are recovering. But yeah, so we may have that. But if you want to see a different topic or you have an idea for a topic, let us know. We're always want to, obviously talk about what you find interesting, not what we find interesting. So with that said, we wish you all a good night and we hope to see you guys next week.
All right. Bye, guys.